had a bit of downtime recently, as many of us have, and I'm using that time to do some maintenance around the property. And one of the big things I'm getting on top of at the moment is some of the maintenance of the equipment I use. And I thought it might be a good time to share a bit about the equipment I use, and obviously take you through some of the upgrades and maintenance that I'm doing at the moment. I thought I'd start with this string trimmer. So I tend to use the higher end of residential equipment. I don't use commercial equipment for the most part because for my purposes it's not necessary, but at the same time I don't use the cheap stuff because I use it a bit too much to have to rely on dodgy equipment, let's say. So this is the string trimmer I use. This is a Honda. It's a 4-stroke model. I really like 4-stroke. Lots of torque down low, decent power. It's 1 horsepower. I think that's 0.75 kilowatts. Could be wrong there. This is a 25cc. They do make a 35, I believe, but it's quite a bit heavier. Even the 25, being a 4-stroke, it is heavier than a 2-stroke engine, so that is something to factor in. And so in this video, I'm going to take you through modifying the head. So I've still got the standard Honda head on this one, and I'm going to be upgrading that to a speed feed head. Now, if you've seen the videos on speed feed, they're excellent heads, and I'll show you later in the video how this one works. I have been using just the standard Honda head, and I'll show you how this one works in case you've got one at home and you're not quite sure how to use it. But then I'll show you why I think the speed feed head is superior. I have used blades on this trimmer as well, but I've found they're not really necessary here. String does just as good a job for what I want, and so this speed feed head's going to be the option I'm going with. I'll finish off today. I'm about due for an oil change on this machine, so I'll do a quick oil change at the end in case you want to see how to do that on these Honda machines. Let's get into it. The speed feed head model I'm going to use is from Rotary, and so here it's called the 375 fast loading trimmer head. They also sell this with the speed feed name with the exact same model number, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but it is the same head. It doesn't have the speed feed writing on there, but it's the same head from the same company. So you'll see the model number 2713375. So I'll put it up on the screen. You'll see the exact same head is sold with the speed feed name. If you know what's going on there, if you're in the business, do tell. And I'm no expert with these. I'm going to be fitting this and figuring it out as I go along. And at the moment, I think the only tool I'm going to need is a little screwdriver just to stop the head spinning as I undo it. But hey, I'm no expert. Come along with me and we might have to use some other tools if it comes to that. You can see there's several adapters. I'm not sure which, if any of those, we'll have to use. So I couldn't find a video on attaching one of these to a Honda, which is something that inspired me to make this as well. If you are going to add it to one of these 4-stroke Honda models, hopefully this is helpful. So we've got the head there, some literature, looks like a little spacer, and some adapters. Let's go and take the head off the whippersnipper, or we call them whippersnippers. I just realised some of you won't know what I mean by that. So string trimmer, whippersnipper, brush cutter, all the same thing. In Australia, a lot of people will say whippersnipper. So let's head over, take the head off, and see what, if anything, from this kit we have to use to adapt it for our Honda. Before I take this head off, I'll quickly show you how the Honda ones that come with these whippersnippers work. Basically, you've got a little cartridge, so you can see this one's almost out of line. I'll put this line back in so you can see how you'd wind it up. You get your length of line, a couple of meters. Obviously, I don't have that here, and you hold it, and you'll see on the back of the head it says wind in this direction. So you find the cut through the middle, and then you just wind in that direction as instructed. And then before you lose your ends, you put it back inside the head, the cartridge back inside the head, and you have to make the string go through these, the 2 eyelets. There's probably a proper name for them, the 2 eyelets, and then you place that back inside, lining up the eyelets, or whatever they're called, with the holes. Click it back on and you're good to go. So that's how these work traditionally. Why don't I like them? Well, this is a fairly small spool, so is the speed feed. It's not a massive spool, but you're having to do this fairly often. And when you're trying to put on a couple of meters of string, you know, you let go once and you've got to start again because it all unwinds. You've got to redo it again. And even if you get it perfectly, even if you get it perfect the first time, it's still quite a lengthy process. So looking to better that with the speed feed head. So I'll just take that line out and put this back together for now, and then we can remove the head. So I'll bring you around the other side so you can see what I'm doing. So you should be able to see that there's a small hole here. Now that hole actually goes through into the head, and so if you turn, see how that works? If you're pushing down on that and you turn the head, you'll feel it click into a little captive hole, and that's what stops the actual I don't know the names for any of this stuff. Like I said, I'm an amateur. The actual head attachment from spinning. So you can actually undo the head like so. And so, there she goes. And so there you can see the head and how it attached. So let's take this over, compare it to the speed feed, and see what we need to change, if anything, so we can attach the speed feed head. Okay, so this wasn't super clear, so I'm glad I made this video. Maybe this helps someone, or perhaps someone can help me, tell me if I'm doing this all wrong or not. But what seems to work with this, and this isn't written on the instructions, so the instructions say for the Honda, and it has a whole list of model numbers. None of them is this exact one. Well, actually, I think this exact one is listed, but it says you can either use the LH6, which is that fitting, the bushing in there, or it says use a spacer and a different fitting. What actually seems to work best as I'm playing around with this, you'll notice this spacer on that way, no good. But if you put it upside down, it actually fits perfectly. And it spaces it just enough. If you look at this, without the spacer, you can see it'd ride up on the key here, which would be a problem. With the spacer, leaves just enough space for this head to be screwed on the correct amount. Now I'm going to need to use my screwdriver to hold this captive again. Now this is a left-hand thread. I should have said this at the start. For a Honda you will need a left-hand thread, and for a lot of them you will need a left-hand thread. I actually haven't used a string trimmer that's not, but apparently there are, because they sold threads going the other way. Like I said, I'm no expert, but you will definitely need a left-hand thread for this model. And so if I screw that up all the way, that looks pretty good. So hey, it looks like that works. I don't know if I made a mistake there, but I can't see how I would have. I think that makes the most sense to me, even though it's not clear on the instructions. I'll put the instructions up on the screen and you can see what I mean. They give the two options. One of them, the LH6 I believe it was called, is the one that comes pre-installed, and so that's definitely the right thread. And they say you either use that or you use the spacer in another fitting, but the other fitting, I mucked around with it and it didn't seem to provide any difference to this one. So by using the spacer in this fitting, we seem to have the result I want. And so nothing left to do but try it out. To start one of these Honda mowers, a few pumps of the priming bulb. Make sure this little red switch is not in the stop position, so you want it back. Throttle on, full choke, one pull, choke off, another pull. Every time, they're beautiful. So the head actually came with some pretty good line in it. Not heaps of it, but it came with some good line. And so actually, I didn't get to show you how to use the head until tonight because I wanted to use that line up. And so just get about, what's that, about 3 meters of line and I'll show you how to install line and why these heads are so good. So basically you've got these arrows on the head and you want to line those up with where the line's going to come out, those what I call eyelets, I don't know what they're called still. And if you look down through there, you'll actually see that that opens up a channel through the middle of the head. And all you do, you put the line through the head, and I'm just standing up just to make sure this is equal on both sides. So I've got, that's a bit more than 3 meters actually. I've got about almost 2 meters each side of that head. And so I'm now in the center of that line. And so I can just turn the head and it winds that string on for me. And so just like that, I've wound that entire spool. There you go. Now you might cut that off, make it a bit even, but the guard's going to take care of that as soon as you let some line out. So that's how easy it is to use a speed feed head, and that's why I wanted to change to this style of head on this string trimmer. And now I'll quickly show you, oil changes on these are super simple. So there's your oil filler, that is also the level when you're on level ground. And so undo the plug when it's nice and warm. So I've come in from using it, I've let it sit for about 2 minutes. That's also your level, so you can see that it's full, but you fill it to the level. Now I changed this fairly recently, but I'd left it a bit too long before that, so you just tip it out. It doesn't hold much oil. Stingless bees come in to observe. And so once you've emptied that of oil, I love these little bottle oil pans. I think they're fantastic. I've spilled much less oil since I've had one of these. Okay, so you just fill through the hole. I use 1030 small engine oil. I like Penrite. I've got no particular reason why. I've just always used Penrite in cars and small engines. I like it, but yeah, I couldn't tell you if it's better or worse than any others. I guess it's that brand loyalty. Doesn't always make sense. Now you can go faster than this. I'm just trying to be careful not to overflow here. Basically you fill it right up to the level. And I'm there now, you can see it's just leaked out over the edge. And so once you're at that level, cap back on and you're done. Oil change done. Super simple.
And I'll finish up by saying that I don't like to review things that I'm not super familiar with. I'm no expert with this sort of equipment. I use it a fair bit, but I'm not an expert. But I will say that I really like this head. It makes feeding the line through the head a much quicker and much simpler process, which is what I was hoping to get out of it. So it does as advertised. Hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.